Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you are returning, welcome back, and if you are new, welcome. So today I wanted to do a video that I've been asked a couple of times to do and it seemed kind of exciting, but I did want to get a few more books from the category under my belt before I did it, and I feel like I'm ready to share and I'm excited to share. So today we're going to be talking about these 7 horror/thriller books that are my favorites, like my top 7 I guess, and I am so excited to share them with you. But without any further ado, let's just get into it. These are going to be in no particular order. They just aren't in an order in my head, so they're not in an order in this video. So yeah, let's just jump on into it. The first book I have here is The Anomaly by Michael Rucker. This was recommended to me by my friend Jake from Jake Does Books, and oh my gosh, it sounded right up my alley when I first heard about it, and I knew I was really gonna like it, and it just turned out amazing. So this is a horror/thriller book about this guy mainly who he has this YouTube channel that has quite a few subscribers, and it's basically the X-Files. And also, if you've ever seen Expedition Unknown, it's very similar to that. Yeah, so basically this YouTube channel that he has with a few other people, they kind of explore unanswered questions in the world, and it's so interesting. This one in particular, there's a couple books in the series, but this one in particular has an Indiana Jones vibe to it, and they are going to this like cave system in what's it called? The Grand Canyon. They get a little bit more than they bargained for, and like I said, very Indiana Jonesy and archaeology kind of based. This one was super interesting. I'm actually currently reading the second one, which is The Possession now, and it's good too, but they definitely have different vibes. Like this one's more archaeology, history based, and then The Possession I think is just more of like a haunting kind of spooky book. So the next book I want to talk about is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. If you didn't know, Mira Grant is Shauna Maguire's pen name, and Shauna Maguire wrote the Wayward Children series, which is one of my favorite series, and this is one of my favorite thrillers/horrors. But this is about a girl whose sister goes missing, making a mockumentary of mermaids in the, let me say it right, Mariana Trench. I always want to say Mariana's Trench. So this follows that girl's sister, and the sister, the main character of this book, is going with a group of scientists to this trench to figure out what happened, and they discovered that these killer mermaids are actually real, and they're fucked. It's really great. And there are so many wonderful diverse characters in here. We have an autistic character, a deaf character, the deaf character and another one uses ASL, which is super cool to see. And there is a female-female romance, which is the main romance. I love this book so much, and I cannot rave about it enough. It's just so fantastic and spooky and gory, and oh, I just love it. Next up, I have a book that I actually finished reading yesterday, and that is The Troop by Nick Cutter. This is just the weirdest book I've ever read. This is about a Boy Scout troop. See, because I kept picturing them as like 18 years old, but they are 14 years old in this book. And it's this Boy Scout group that goes to this island every year, and they camp there for the weekend. And this particular weekend, something happens. There is a man that arrives on this island, and the man is like really like grotesquely skinny, and he's just eating whatever he sees, like not edible things. And it turns out that this isn't a spoiler either. This guy was an experiment, kind of like a scientific experiment, and it gets more into that in the later parts of the book, but this is the most graphic book I've ever read. So if you don't like gore or blood, stay far away from this one. It made me queasy. It literally triggered my gag reflex at one point. In this one in particular, I want to make note, there are two very, very, very graphic instances of animal abuse and animal torture, and it's horrific to read. Those were the 2 points in which I thought about putting the book down, even though I was absolutely loving it. I like could not handle it, and it was a lot, but it was good. Like, the outside of that, like, I don't want to say that that was a bad part of the book, it was just hard to read, but the book itself was fantastic, and I liked that the message that it kind of gave off, and it had a very what's the book I'm looking for? Lord of the Flies. It was definitely heavily inspired by Lord of the Flies, and if you've read it, you'll definitely see the tie-ins to this. It was amazing, and oh my gosh, absolutely wonderful. But listen, be prepared before you go into this. Don't just go into it thinking like, oh, scary book. Like, no, prepare yourself, please. So the next book that I want to talk about is Blood Countess by Lana Popovich. This is actually a YA book, but I don't, in my opinion, it's probably a little bit older than that, just because of the graphicness kind of the book. This is kind of a retelling of, or telling the story of, what is her name? Emily, is it Emily? Elizabeth Bathory, who was a woman who inspired Dracula, and she tortured like these women that she kept as almost slaves, and it was really horrific, and the book is really horrific as well. There are pretty graphic scenes of torture and stuff like that. One in particular that jumps out at me is her and her husband tie up a few slaves and literally just like whip them and carve into them until they're dead. So yeah, I don't know how this ended up as YA, but it is technically YA, so I will mention that. There's also kind of a female-female romance in here between the main character and this Elizabeth Bathory character, and I wouldn't really call it a romance because it's not, but it was interesting to see, and interesting to kind of see that dynamic, and I really liked it. It was fun, kind of, in a way, in like a really gory way. I really ended up liking this one. I was kind of surprised, actually. Next, we have a book that I've talked about a lot on my channel, and that is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This is a, what's it called, dark academia book, and this follows a group of kids who are going to the school for theater, and particularly Shakespearean plays they are performing. And listen, there's some weird group dynamics, shit goes down, and it was amazing. I love this book so much, honestly. I've said it 1,000 times before, I'll say it again. If you like The Secret History, you will love this. This is like The Secret History, easier to read though, and shorter. So like, why wouldn't you pick it up? I mean, you know, even if you didn't like The Secret History because, say, it was too long or maybe too difficult to read, pick this one up. You will like it. It's good. It's not necessarily quick and to the point, but like, it doesn't beat around the bush, and it's really good. And I love drama. I love college drama between pretentious people. Like, that's literally all dark academia is, so it's like my favorite genre. And finally, we have probably, I would say my favorite, if we were putting a name on it, my favorite thriller of all time, and that would be Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. This blew me out of the water, and it was so unexpected and amazing. So I'm sure you've heard about this before because people talk about it a lot. And so this one's about, it's a domestic thriller about this woman who, first she has a one-night stand with this man that she now, like the next day she walks into her new job and realizes that he's her boss. Love that. And then she ends up befriending his wife for God knows what reason, and his wife has a little bit more deceitful intentions than, you know, this main character thinks. So it's really good. It almost has kind of a Gone Girl vibe in that, like, the whole like domestic thriller kind of thing and what's going on, and you know, you don't know, like, you don't know pretty much anything until the very end of the book, and it's just plot twist after plot twist. And listen, if a book can make me scream oh my god and what the heck at, you know, at 2 a.m. when everybody's asleep, like audibly yell, then it's amazing. And this one did, because I was shook. I was just shook. And I promise you, you will think you know the plot twist. You will not know the plot twist. I actually made my sister read this one, and she finished it and threw it at me and said she's never reading another book that I recommend again. So yeah, so that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys got some good recommendations or just had a good time watching. But yeah, let me know what you thought down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.